Hello everybody, Kevin Stevenson here with GetMeTheGeek.com, and today, guess what? That's right, TrueNAS Scale. It's out, it's released, boom, the first production release. So let's go take a look. What I'm gonna do today, we're live. I've got my test unit beta release candidate 2 that I'm gonna go ahead and click the update on, and then while that's doing that thing, we're gonna take a look at what we're getting here. All right, so let's do that real quick. We're gonna switch over, show you my screen, and get that going. Let's just say, all right, here we go. Here we are. All right, here's my screen. All right, here's my scale machine. It is up, release candidate 2 right here, as you can see. All right, so we're gonna go click available updates, and this is just gonna pop in there, and it's gonna go from release 2 to release. All right, release candidate 2 to release. All right, so apply pending updates, boom. Save my configuration, confirm, continue, and bing, bang, boom. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to set it off to the side and let it do its thing. And we're going to do that just like this. All right. So it's going to sit over here while we talk about the blog. All right. So here we go. First official release. So you can just watch over here to the side if you want. It's just going to go in the background while I talk about stuff. It's downloading the release. It's probably going to be, I don't know, a little bit of a download. It'll have to download, install, reboot the machine. So it might take a few minutes. But while it's doing that, like I said, we will follow this, take a look at what we've got to see, talk about the release, talk about the new release, talk about where it's at now, where it's going. Should you be using it or not? All right. So we're going to talk about some of these things here. Okay. Go ahead and drop your questions. All right. So send me your questions. Got it in here. All right. So again, first official release. Why is this such a big deal? I'll tell you why. So number one, TrueNAS, FreeNAS, has been based on FreeBSD forever, right? And so what this is this is the first production release of TrueNAS Scale, which is based on Linux. And you might be saying, well, why do we care? You know, whether it's on BSD or Linux or not. Well, when you get into Linux, it really opens up the opportunities here. So, you know, you get arguably the number one hypervisor in the world, KVM, as your virtual hypervisor. You get Docker, which, you know, if you're not hanging out in IT, then if you are hanging out in IT in any way, shape, or form, you probably came across the term Docker. Docker for containers. It is massive. It's actually got, they're running like Kubernetes underneath here. So it really has the opportunity to really expand out into something that is not just a single NAS or a single server, but a scaled up cluster of servers, GlusterFS and things like that. So those are all the things that we're looking at that we get in here. Now, does that mean you should abandon TrueNAS Core? The answer is no. First of all, this is the first release. You could think of this as 1.0. So 1.0 product. So yeah, I wouldn't, you know, bet the entire corporation on a 1.0 product yet. So, you know, wait for some patches and everything, but it's certainly ready to maybe a small deployment, a small test area, a lab to get it going and really start testing it, because you can do a lot of things with it. Now, FreeBSD with TrueNAS Core is stable, rock solid. They're getting ready to move over to version 13 of that. So that is cool. And it has the IO cage for your jails, and it's super rock solid. So if you want rock solid, production ready, stick with the Core. If you want to be a little bit on the edge and you want to explore some of the new things, then this is your option. All right, so let's take a look at this image here. So this kind of shows you a little bit. So if you look at this image, this is sort of the, I don't know what they're calling this, but this is like the flow of how their vision of what's going on. You see up here in this top FreeNAS 11.3, that was our good old tried and true FreeNAS 11 that we'd been using for a while. It's great, solid. And then you got the TrueNAS 13, and then they together one unified core when 12 came out. That was a big thing too, and man, was it awesome. So what happens now? Okay, so you can look down here, these enterprise and core, license, no license, and all that good stuff. So that's something that I'm just not going to really talk about. But moving forward, you see here's TrueNAS 13. This is our core version. It's still BSD based and everything. And then you got our scale, which is the hyperconvergent one that they're calling it. And that's just 22.02, which is, what we just had released. And then as things move forward, you got this arrow going on this TrueNAS command. So TrueNAS command could be something big in the future. Right now it's kind of, whatever. But when you have a cluster of these machines and you want to manage a bunch of them, the command is where it's at to be able to go and manage more machines in one thing. So yes. Now let's just go ahead and look at some of this. So this is not where I want to be. This is what I want. Okay. So here we go. Look at that. Debian, which is a rock solid Linux distro, core, scale, boom, together. Here's what it is. Now, so what are we getting? Well, let's just look through some of these things. Docker, containers, Kubernetes, KVM, scale out with ZFS, Gluster file system. GlusterFS is really kind of neat. If you haven't played around with GlusterFS, you can think of it, I guess the easiest way to think of GlusterFS is a network RAID system. So, for example, what you can have is you got machine A, machine B, machine C. And each one of those has a GlusterFS, and they're presenting a volume, 1, 2, and 3. And so then you can take those 3 volumes and you can replicate across them in like a RAID 5 type of situation, or mirror and things like that. So I'm not going to go to GlusterFS right now, though I want to do some videos on that, because in the past I have taken my my little cluster of Raspberry Pis and made a GlusterFS out of it, and it was pretty cool. So GlusterFS, something I'm super excited to play with again on this. KVM, like I said, KVM is probably the largest hypervisor out there. When you're putting your machines out there in the cloud, it's probably running on a KVM hypervisor. Not if you're doing Azure. AWS was using a Zen server, but I think they've switched over to KVM on most of their stuff too. If you go to most of these other cloud providers that are hosting virtual machines, they're probably running KVM. Kubernetes is a big name in building out Docker clusters, if you will. We'll just call it Docker clusters. It's a little simplified from there, but it's a whole beast of its own, and lots of good things there. Now, Docker containers themselves, so you can make a Docker container. I did a couple videos on that, so if you want to check out some of that, we'll look at that, and boom. So moving on, let's look at some of these things. So ZFS. So what is scale anyway? Right here's what this acronym is meant to, what they're actually saying. Scale out ZFS, converging compute and storage, active reliability, Linux containers, easy setup and manage. So who are we targeting here? I think they're targeting, at least initially, the small businesses that want to have small and medium business that want to have virtualization. So the people that are using Proxmox, like myself, with Scale, it suddenly becomes a competitor for Proxmox. VMware, if you're using ESXi, VMware ESXi, this suddenly becomes a competitor for it because KVM is stable enough and the Kubernetes and containers is all stable and able to compete with those things. So there's opportunities there. Yes, thoughts on ESI versus as a hypervisor. So exactly, thank you in the comments there. Exactly what I'm talking about, ESXi. So when I first started out, I was a big ESXi fan. VMware, one, it was super easy to use. You throw ESXi on a server. I used to start out with VMware Server back in the day, even before all that stuff. But it's easy to use. I think this is going to be a competitor. Is it a competitor now? No, I don't think so. so just so you know, it's not, like I said, it's a 1.0, but give it a little bit, iteration 1 or 2 down the road, or maybe even just some small revisions, and it might get there as an alternative. What it really is quality stands for is just being able to do a storage. So you can have, imagine your scenario is this. So you're using the TrueNAS Scale for your virtualization, and you're using TrueNAS core for your storage and stuff. And so you can have a whole TrueNAS everything. And yes, XCP NG is awesome. I used to use the predecessor to XCP-ng, Zen Server, as our virtualization platform for many years, and that's a good, stable, great product. XCP-ng on the under the hood is Zen, the hypervisor Zen, and that's slightly different than KVM. Like I said, Zen. Actually, I think that AWS started out on Zen, and I think they have their own customized Zen hypervisor, but I think they've slowly been migrating that over to KVM. Yes, hardware support. Good point. When you're looking at hardware support, Linux hands down beats FreeBSD every day. And if you're also looking at hardware, so one of the problems I used to have with my ESXi machines was finding a RAID controller that had drivers in ESXi. So if I'm not buying the ESXi from Dell or whatever, I was building my own, and so the limitations on the RAID hardware was pretty significant. When you have a Linux core underneath there, when you have a Linux core underneath there, then you have a lot of RAID drivers that are built in that easy to do that. I love LSI cards. I have bunches of them laying around here, and so one of the reasons why I actually switched off of ESXi was for a couple reasons. Number one, they had the VMware Center that was an install, and in the free version they were messing around and switching to web version when Dell purchased VMware back in the day, and it was kind of became uncertain as to where I'd be able to use that free product for effectively, and it became more and more a pain in the butt for me to do backups. Now there was can't remember, there was a scripts that I used to use, Ghetto VCB, I think it was, that I used to use for the ESXi to do the backups and everything, and it just became more and more of a pain in the butt. And so that's when I switched to Zen Server. And the nice thing about Zen Server is, it was really a one-for-one comparison, like, oh, it's very much like ESXi. And at the same time, I did look at Proxmox back in those days, but I just was more confident in the Zen server at the time because it was, what is Cisco or Cisco? I can't remember who used to own them, but anyway, so yeah, I went to that, and now I landed on Proxmox. I also had a stint in there with Hyper-V, which Hyper-V is pretty good, by the way. It really is pretty decent. But I really like Proxmox. KVM under the hood, being able to take a VMDK and convert it straight over to a KVM and import it and everything. It works. It has very little issues uptime. I like the migration. So, with ESXi, you had to pay money to do live migrations and backups and all these other things. And it was just expensive, where you get 99% of that stuff with Proxmox free, and you can pay them for support. But yeah, so it looks like it's starting to boot up here. You can't tell if it's rebooted in the background. It's that computer over there. You can see the monitor over there, but whatever. I don't know if you can see it. I got you in a little dark. So anyway, yeah. So let's look at this life cycle. So 22.02 is what they're calling this. And release right here, February 22. Number one, congratulations, IX Systems, on going ahead and getting that out there on your schedule. Great. Yeah, I was kind of surprised how good Hyper-V is too. It's really great on your desktop PCs, but the Hyper-V server is a very minimal install and easy to get up and running, and everything. Now, the problems I had with Hyper-V were management. So it was kind of a pain in the butt to manage, because it really, really wants to be connected to a domain controller. And so some of my clients are small businesses, and so they might have one server. And even with one server, I like to virtualize, because it's so easy to manage and migrate, and move around and back up. And when disaster hits, you just basically copy the files off there onto a new machine, and you're up and running. It's just really easy to for disaster recover when you do virtualization. But Hyper-V as a single standalone server works, and I did it in a work group scenario, but it's not really ideal. And now there is some like web interface to manage a little bit. It's a little bit better, but honestly, I think Hyper-V is going to be, when it comes to the Hyper-V server, is really going to be for an organization that has several computers. Maybe you have like the full-blown Windows server, and then you install the Hyper-V on it to have some VMs that are in there for different things. So yeah, and it's changed a lot. I mean, Hyper-V is getting better and better every year. Just let's see if we can reload this page here and see what's going on. Oh, look, we might be up. Let's log in. Here we are, and we are up. Now keep in mind, this is my test machine, and it is, well, yeah, so it's an AMD A6 3500. So it's super powerful. All right, so I got some errors because, okay, no, what's going on? I got some issues here. I've got a drive that's apparently popping some issues too, so Yeah, so I get, if I go over to the storage, it's going to say, nope, it says it's okay. All right, well, here we are. It's up. Yeah, this is the final version. It is not a release candidate. This is the first official production release. Oh yeah, mine to say update availables too. Let's see what it says. Yep. Derek, you're 100% right. I have that same issue. I had to guess two things. Number one, their servers are probably getting smashed right now for people updating because they're so excited about this release. And number two, if that update issue is an actual issue, they'll probably release a quick patch, I would imagine. Yeah, right now, this TrueNAS that you're looking at here on screen is an actual bare metal machine. So if you, let me flip you over here. So if you look, actually this computer right here, yeah. So yeah, that's the computer right there, and I just have it. It's just something I slapped together for testing TrueNAS Scale, to be honest. So I've not done much of that hardware pass through on to TrueNAS Core using Proxmox. I was looking at doing that, and I've done a little bit, done a little bit of hardware pass through, because I did a video on trying to do gaming on Proxmox. So if you shoot back in some of my old videos, I had a RTX 2060 plugged into a Proxmox machine and did hardware pass through for that to do gaming. And I did remote desktop in there gaming, and it was not so great. But then I did a second video where I'm using NVIDIA GeForce Now to game on there, and then I can get more than 60 frames per second on there. So that's pretty cool. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Yeah, this little AMD is loving its life right now. All right, so anything look different? No, right off the top, it doesn't really look much different than the previous versions. Everything's in here. I don't have any tasks or anything set up. Virtualization. This all looks pretty much the same. Apps. I've deleted all the apps out of here because I had Shinobi and a couple other ones in here. And let's see, available applications. Boom. All right. So all this looks really the same. And one thing I did want to look is yeah, Vault Warden. Has anybody used Vault Warden? I'm thinking about doing a video on this because I'm a big fan of Bitwarden, and I was thinking about trying to do Vault Warden video for self-hosted password manager. So drop some thumbs ups in there if you're interested in seeing a video on that. Oh, wonder what the caged gateway is. There's a lot of things in here under the applications that I'm super interested in checking out. Memory ballooning. I do not know. I think I was reading earlier about the memory ballooning that it's not in here. However, it is running KVM, so I think if you install the KVM tools and everything with the ballooning service, that it might work, but that is a good question. You know, with Proxmox, you know, you can do the memory ballooning too, so that your VMs don't so they only use as much RAM as they actually need. When you run the ZFS, that memory can become an issue, and so that's probably, if it's not addressed yet, it's probably going to be on the short list if I had to guess, because when you're running virtual machines and ZFS systems that really like to have their RAM, yeah. Right, awesome. Good to see somebody out there using Vault Warden. I've been reading about it the other day, and like I said, I've been using Bitwarden for quite a while, and Vault Warden is a neat project written in Rust, and it's basically API compliant, compatible with Bitwarden, and so you can host your own Vault Warden server and use the clients, the official clients and plugins to your browser for Bitwarden. So, yeah, that's on my short list of videos to do. So, expect to see something out coming on that pretty soon. Okay, let's pop this back over here and see what else we have. Looks like all the normal stuff. ZFS, Windows ACLs. This is probably going to be in a lot better better situation than the BSD version. The BSD stuff tends to be a little bit behind the Linux stuff. Debian tends to be not on the bleeding edge anyway, so it could be pretty close. Scale out. See, this is something I'm interested in, the scale out ZFS, where they're using Gluster FS. That's going to be a fun thing to play with. But it looks like for that to really, looks like I'm going to have to wait for this guy. Bluefin, I think, is the next. Yeah, Bluefin is the next release. So we'll have to wait a little bit before we get to play with the Gluster stuff. I'm sure we're going to get some preview stuff, and I'm sure if you get into the beta channels, you can play with that stuff. Awesome. Kubernetes. If you've seen my Docker videos, you will notice that one of my problems with how things are implemented is they don't allow port assignment below 9,000, which I understand why, but I kind of hate it, because if I want to just throw up a Docker of Nginx Proxy Manager, I want to actually use port 80. I need to actually use port 80, 81, and a 443 in order for that to function properly. And so I haven't figured out how we're supposed to do that. It doesn't look like there's an easy way for it to get its own separate IP address from the TrueNAS box, but hopefully that'll be stalled. Yes, I already had the TrueNAS or the True Charts installed. I did that from a previous video. I do not know. So if we go to catalog, what Darren here is asking about is the TrueNAS charts. Well, I shouldn't have clicked on that. Already being installed. So I did a bit that in one of my previous videos where I installed that. My guess is that you will have to add that separately, and it won't be on your clean install. I'm probably going to wipe this guy and do a fresh clean install to see how it looks after this. But yeah, let's see, CLI, TUI, changes. Okay, changes. Let's see is there much changes between the release candidate and this. I'm guessing not. Yeah. looks like pretty much nothing. Oh, look, who should use Scale? There you go. So one thing I will say, I'm super excited with this. I think it's got a lot of potential. It is going to get there. One of the things I want to say is I'm a big fan of this website, Serve the Home. If you don't frequent it and you like to hear about this type of hardware and stuff, they are a great resource. They posted an article already about TrueNAS Scale, and everything in this article I agree with 100%. So if you want to look for some additional reading, go ahead and check out this article. And we'll drop it in the here. Boop. Copy. And we'll drop it into the chat if anybody wants to pop into this article. But yeah. So any other questions? Because I think this guy was simple. Like, to be honest, I'm not even entirely certain that I don't think it rebooted even. So that's a good thing. Then again, this guy is, I really need to change this hardware because it's crap. I've got sitting in a box over there a FreeNAS Mini or TrueNAS Mini XL that I did a video on a long time ago that ended up not being used in a project that I need to pull out of the box and get it going. So, all right. I think we're getting close to the end here. Is anybody got any questions? Anything they want me to look at, poke around, show you that I didn't show? Yeah. Nothing. Okay. I'll just poke around here. Yeah. All right. So my next step with this guy is to wipe this guy completely clean, reinstall it. Maybe I'll put a little bit, maybe I'll switch out to give some more hardware, something a little bit more powerful. So yeah, Kevin Stevenson with GetMeTheGeek.com. And this has been a TrueNAS Scale review, sort of, a fresh release. Go out there, install it, play with it. Your service, if they turn, yeah, let's see, services. I don't know what I had on. Yes, I know I had Smart turned on, but that's the only thing. I had SSH turned on for my purposes, but I may have turned that off again already. Like, before I did this, I kind of went and deleted a bunch of stuff out of there to clean it up. So my guess is I didn't have SMB turned on, so I couldn't really answer that. Here's mine. It shows the smart service on, but that was probably, generally speaking, they do a really good job. If you've got the checkbox turned on over here, if you do a reboot or update, it all comes back on. They're really good about that stuff. So yeah, okay, all right. Well, I got nothing else. I'll see you guys later. I will see you in the next video, and if all things go well, it'll be a Vault Warden video. If not, I'll go to something else. I also probably going to do something with PF Sense here coming up too, since they just released some stuff. So if you're interested in PF Sense, you can stay tuned. I've got some videos coming out on that too. So have a good one.